how strong is the American urge to normalize relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel? Because my understanding, Alastair, and correct me please if you wish, is that the linchpin or the sine qua non of this normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia post October 7th is the two-state solution, and no Israeli government is going to accept that voluntarily.
Yeah, and you know, the degree to which Saudi is bound by that is not really appreciated, because it was the former Saudi king who gathered together the Arab world, and they agreed jointly on this peace plan of 2002, and that has one basic theme. Normalization only following the establishment of the Palestinian state on the lands of 67, with Jerusalem as its capital. It is clear as it can be. And as I've mentioned before, there is a sort of convention in Saudi Arabia, where it's more the convention, but Wali al-Amr, which means that the king is absolute monarch. And when the king has laid down a policy, everyone must abide by it. There can be no discussion, no further change in this. And Mohammed bin Salman is the crown prince, but he is not wali, he is not the monarch yet. He may become that, or he may not become that. So it's very difficult for Saudi to move away from a very categorical injunction that has been made by the monarch that is not for questioning, in order to satisfy Western demands that he normalized with Israel. And this is why I think at the moment, you know, what bin Salman is doing is he needs American support should the king die. As you know, he's in intensive care in hospital at the moment. And if he should die, then there will be a family council. And even if America can't nominate who will be the next king, they probably are not able to do that, but they could certainly disrupt some. And that's what he does not want to be, if you like, that the United States will, you know, act against him when the family council comes to consider the succession to the king, whenever that is.
Here's the king's foreign minister just 10 days ago saying Israel does not get to make all of these decisions on its own unilaterally.
Israel doesn't get to decide whether or not the Palestinians have a right to self-determination. This is something that is enshrined in the United Nations Charter. It is something that is enshrined into international law. It is also a founding principle of the United Nations decision to found Israel. So, you know, it is absolutely necessary that Israel accepts that it cannot exist without the existence of a Palestinian state, that its security is served by building a Palestinian state. So we hope sincerely that the leaders in Israel will realize that it is in their interest to work with the international community, not just to strengthen the Palestinian Authority, but to finally establish a Palestinian state along the 1967 borders, as everybody understands is the right thing to do.
I can't imagine the Netanyahu or the Gantz, whoever it might be, government going along with a two-state solution along the 1967 borders. Can you?
No, I think that was. I think the opportunity for that was lost long ago. I mean, the whole of that process was, if you like, of the Oslo process, was actually just pushed the prospect of having a two-state solution further and further away. It was left always ultimately to Israel to make the final decision on this. And so all that's happened is it was constructed in such a way actually to obstruct the coming of a two-state solution. And the settlements and the settlers are adding to that and have made it virtually impossible to have a two-state solution. So, I mean, what the foreign minister was just saying was outlining exactly what I said was the Saudi monarch's position. I mean, we're talking about Abdullah, not the present king, but Abdullah in 2002 gathered together the Arab world and they signed this declaration, the Arab Initiative, which laid down exactly what he was saying. But that was 2002. And since then, everything has been done in order to obstruct that coming into being. Everything has been done to obstruct that from that point on. And so Israel believes that it has put a stop to a Palestinian state. And effectively it has. So what do we do? I mean, this is the question. Instead of going on just calling for a two-state solution, you have to try and look at the reality of this. And then finally to see where this is going. And ultimately, the only way out of this, well, there are only two ways out of this, really. One is by escalation, which is the way that many in Israel are thinking that this is going to go to, if you like, to a big apocalyptic war that will restore deterrence of Israel, which they feel they've lost. In other words, get the region to fear them again. Or else that eventually, if this doesn't work, Israelis may come to the conclusion that the principle in Zionism, which is very similar to that that existed in South Africa, of special rights for one population group over others, special rights over other population groups that share the same territory with you, will have to go, and that they will have to look at a new way of configuring how to live in this region without special rights, special political rights, special legal, administrative, and security rights over the other populations that live in this territory. Right. So those are really the only two alternatives that I see that's possible. Now, I know, this is when people say to me, but what's your solution now? Well, sometimes, as I say, I'm not a diplomat. And I say to people, I'm sorry, you can't always command the tide to come in or out. Perhaps the Israelis are going to try for their solution of, if you like, a great war against Lebanon and against the region in order to reestablish it. And if that fails, then there will be the possibility of having some sort of political solution or some sort of discussion. But you can't sit there on the beach and just command the tide to recede because you want it to go out. So I think that's, you've got to look at reality in a hard-headed way and consider your possibilities on that basis and not just on wishful thinking or on show or on narratives. And everything now is, narratives. We want, a winning narrative. Look, Israel, it's in your best interest. It's only reasonable. You must agree to a two-state solution, even though we know you will never implement it. And if you do that, then we can have a little bit of quiet and we can get on with our elections and the life in the West will go back to normal. Well, if you want to imagine that for a while, you're free to do so, but it's not going to work.